The final part of the Christmas story takes place a little time after the first Christmas, but it still directly connects to the story of Jesus' birth. We find this story in Matthew chapter 2, starting at verse 1. Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea. This happened while Herod was king of Judea. After Jesus' birth, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem. At the time of Jesus' birth, the nation of Israel was part of the Roman Empire, but the Romans allowed at least a part of it, Judea, to be ruled by a king called Herod. Herod was not a good king. He was manipulative and suspicious of everyone and everything. Herod had worked his way into a high position. He was always looking over his shoulder for any small threat to his throne. Herod was not afraid to do drastic things to keep his power. Sometime after Jesus was born, wise men from the east came to Judea in the city of Jerusalem. You've seen these guys. Usually in the nativity scene, they're the three men who are dressed really fancy. The truth is that they probably didn't arrive until quite some time after Jesus was born. We don't really know how many of them there were, and honestly, we don't really know much about them at all. All we know for sure is that they were important men and they had come from a long way away. These were men who tracked the changes in the stars, and they saw a star that was different from anything they had seen before. They followed the star, hoping to find the child King Jesus so that they could worship him. When they arrived in Jerusalem, the wise men went to see King Herod. They asked, "Where is the child who has been born to be the King of the Jews? When we were in the east, we saw his star. Now we have come to worship him." When Herod heard about this new baby king from the wise men, he was troubled and upset. After all, if this new baby was the true king, Herod was afraid that would mean his own rule was coming to an end. He decided to investigate, and he questioned the wise men all about the star. He sent them to Bethlehem. He said, "Go, make a careful search for the child. As soon as you find him, bring me a report. Then I can go and worship him too." Now Herod didn't really want to worship Jesus. He just wanted to find out where he was, and he was using the wise men to his own advantage. After the wise men had listened to the king, they went on their way. The star they had seen when they were in the east went ahead of them. It finally stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. The wise men went to the house. There they saw the child with his mother Mary. They bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures. They gave him gold, incense, and myrrh. The wise men were convinced they were in the presence of the Messiah, the long-awaited King of the world. This child was the Son of God. Unlike Herod, he had true power. He would have wisdom greater than that of the greatest wise men. So now that the wise men had found the child king and had been able to worship him, what were they going to do about Herod's command to return to him? Let's read in verse 12. But God warned them in a dream not to go back to Herod, so they returned to their country on a different road. When Herod realized the wise men were not going to return, he came up with a terrible plan to get rid of the child king for good. It didn't work, however. See, God knew that Herod's power was limited and it would only last a short time. But Jesus, the true king, would be here to stay. Over the last few weeks, we have heard several stories that are often called Christmas stories. This isn't wrong. They tell us the story of how God sent us Jesus, and they tell us what we know about Jesus' birth. But these aren't just Christmas stories. What I mean is we can read and celebrate Jesus all year long. Think about it. God had promised to send a Savior, giving his people hope to look forward to. When God sent Jesus into what can only be described as a very dark world, Jesus was like the light of a bright star lighting up a dark night. God fulfilled the hope of his promise. Jesus is God's greatest gift to us. Jesus is always worth celebrating. So how can you celebrate Jesus all year long? Not just at Christmas time, but all the time. Discuss with your families and households what are some ways that you can celebrate Jesus throughout the year. Throughout January, we will have more activities and stories for kids on our website, so keep an eye out for those. Until then, have a happy new year, and I can't wait to see you in 2022.